So the next speaker is M. M is potentially an incoming student to even the Media Lab, I hope so. They have done incredible work on olfaction, and they bring this perspective to this that is art and design and hardcore science and even psychophysics, which is not a fake word. It doesn't mean the physics of psychos. It is something that was developed in the last couple of 100 years. There's a very famous physicist called Weber who did these measurements. Amongst other things, he determined what are the sensitivities of the human apparatus for measurement. Psychophysics means the study of the human perception apparatus. So fundamentally, perception engineering and olfaction is part of psychophysics. So M integrates all of these things, and I give you them.
Thank you so much. So hi, I'm M Dougherty. Like Andreas mentioned, I'm a scent artist, I'm a designer, but I'm also a researcher. So my work, I study human olfaction, and then in my art practice, I use scent as my medium, and that could look like a bunch of different things. Sometimes that's mixing specific scents, like perfumery. Sometimes that's scenting spaces, sculptures, installations. Today, I wanted to talk about a device I made as part of my master's at NYU in interactive media. It's called Odor Organ. So we've talked about this several times throughout this conference, that we tend to ignore our sense of smell and like all of the rich olfactory information around us. And although not everyone is, humans evolved to be able to be capable of perceiving and communicating this information. And being able to have a more acute understanding would allow us a clear understanding of our surroundings, our environment, our bodies, our health, our memory, formation, and recall. Scent can tell you about the genetics of those around you, the species in your ecosystem, about disease, danger. It also holds the traditions of foods in a culture. So here was my mission, to help people increase their olfactory literacy, but how? Scent's a wonderful well of information, but like Andreas said, it involves chemistry, artistry, neuroscience, perception, psychology, genetics. It can feel pretty intimidating just to access, but it doesn't have to be. It can be pretty fun to explore. So I wanted to use play as like a joyful, low access point into learning, inviting people to experience, follow their own curiosity into the world of scent. So that's what I did. As we heard earlier from Joe Paradiso, there's this long-standing connection between scent and sound. It's not just in the temporal qualities of both, the subjective nature, but it's also in the actual language. So here you can see some common words that are used in the practice of perfumery, and also in sound. So sense, accord, organ. In this project, I wanted to use this correlation to my advantage and use the actual mechanisms of music making, specifically the form of piano. So here's the actual organ. So how it works is you play keys, and instead of hearing sound, you have different notes of smell. I chose this form because it's pretty familiar. There's so many different kinds of pianos, from toy pianos to when we're kids, to grand pianos in the hallway. It has pretty intuitive mechanisms, and it's not an intimidating thing to approach and just start. Even if you're mashing buttons, you still understand the mechanisms. You don't need to have any previous knowledge to start. So the odor organ, I say, is a compact diffusion device that delivers odor notes and synchronicity to music keys. It allows you to play scent instead of sound. So I thought about a couple different use cases. The first of which is for a space for those unfamiliar with the field of scent to just learn more about scent, but the other is for perfumers and scent professionals like myself. This would be a great mixing tool if I'm working on a specific composition of smell, to be able to play different degrees of mixtures. As a perfumer, a great way to find different harmonies that you might not have if you have to add a few drops to each vial. So in the history of scent art, there have been a few attempts at this project. Most famously, Septimus Pies took the musical scale and mapped scents to it. Each note of the piano you can see on the left. And then in 1922, artist Frank R. Paul, inspired by Pies's work, illustrated a theoretical smell organ, but he didn't actually fabricate it. It did inspire other artists since then, and there have been a lot of different iterations on this concept. So this is not an original thing that I came up with. I just wanted to do a modern take on it. So unlike the other multisensory experiences you saw, where it's like a big organ in a room where you're filling a lot of space, this one really doesn't favor more like a bigger audience. It really is optimized for the person playing it. So it's a more individual interaction. Yeah. So I started by just taking music, a scale, and mapping different scents and seeing like what would come up, would harmonies arise, etc. It wasn't really clear if that was the case, but this exercise just showed me that like which notes are mapped with what smells is pretty significant to what is possible. So I looked into different categories of scent, and there's plenty. This is 2 examples of the odor wheel, but there's a couple problems with that. The biggest one is that it's limited. It's also like based on subjectivity and bias. So there's like all of these cultural connotations that come up. It's incomplete. You're not going to see, like with a real color wheel, you're not going to see what is the opposite smell. You won't have like specific and equal correlations between the different windows. And there's many scientists that are like trying to crack this dimensionality and lexicon. So I kind of put this down and stuck with what I know, and that's perfumery is where I came from. So in perfumery, you organize notes by how volatile they are. So the fastest things to evaporate are the top notes, middle notes, and the longest ones are the base notes. So that's what I did, and I just limited myself to materials I had. So this is what I ended up with. So here you can see it being played.
Never have I wished more for it to be able to smell something.
I know. Let me explain. So I'm part of a residency at Boston University in the spring, and I'm revamping this organ. So it's currently in pieces on my desk, and it's not in a place where I had the time to put it back together. But everyone's invited to come to the residency in the spring. That's where it'll premiere. This is just how it was working for my prototype. I kind of hacked into a MIDI keyboard. I used an Arduino to trigger different diffusers. But there was like a couple different problems with this. Like as a perfumer, I couldn't move between materials easily. Like there definitely needs to be a cartridge system. Yes, I wanted the mechanisms of the keyboard, but it wasn't optimal like to control things like timing, sensitivities, like all the wiring wasn't optimal. I need to redo all of that. So I'm working with a scientific engineer, Dan Gross, to do all of that. So yeah, that's where I explain why it's not here. Yeah, I mean, it really is. And I'm super passionate about smell. Like I'm happy to talk about it anytime and all the time. So please reach out if you have any questions or just want to nerd out a little bit. Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you. Questions for M and Carolina, can you prep the next speaker?
I have it.
They're going to, oh, you have it? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So questions for M. Oh, there it is. Emmett has a question for M. I love it. Here, let me give you the mic. But it's for the web. Oh, there's a lot of people on the web.
Hi, I love your presentation.
Thank you.
I'm curious if there were any like meaningful physical correlates that you found when you were trying to map sounds to scent. Because I'm thinking, for example, about like the overtone series and spectral music, and when you were talking about the duration of certain scents in perfumery, it made me think of like fundamental frequency versus partials.
Totally.
And
yeah,
I'm just curious what your thought process was for
I
that.
don't know enough about music theory. This is like one point I came to, trying to like there's like different rules of harmonies in music, and it would be lovely to see if those mapped directly, but I didn't know enough, so I tried to avoid the synesthetic kind of experience and focus more on letting people see the temporal qualities of smell on their own. I think it like highlights that more so than saying this smell equals this note in a way. I think that is kind of a misnomer and super subjective, and it kind of detracts from just like smelling out what's possible.
Thanks.
Yeah.
I'm inspired to ask you a question that I used to use as a demonstration of how to not construct questions. And the
Cool.
question is, what does Mozart's music smell like? Equally, you can ask, what does Mozart, what color is it? So that's where the synesthesia comes. But if I do ask everybody here, what color is Mozart's music, assuming you know it, to me, it's quite clear that it's pink and peach. I do
Oh,
not
I
know
would've said blue.
why that's unclear to other people, but of course, that's where the subjectivity comes in. Other questions?